think I'd try this a new way. I'm gonna show you the tricks that I know. I'm getting tired of talking, and I need more of a show right now. It's time that you made your mind up, 'cause lately all it ever does is change. Feels like we're only talking, going round and around, back around. I will fight like no other every day. I won't stop like the others. I will stay. 'Cause now is the right time, and I'm feeling alright. I'm playing your game like I know I can win right now. It's a fun night. You got me on tonight, 'cause loving you is like I'm walking a tightrope so high. I won't be turning around, no, I won't be turning around. It's the right time. You feeling alright? I'm playing your game like I will win tonight. I think I'll do it on my way. I'm gonna show you what I'm going through, get you out of your comfort zone, 'cause I need more of the truth right now. It's time that you made your mind up, 'cause lately all it ever does is change. Feels like we're only talking, going round and around, back around. I will fight like no other every day. I won't stop like the others. I will stay. 'Cause now is the right time, and I'm feeling alright. I'm playing your game like I know I can win right now. It's a fun night. You got me on tonight, 'cause loving you is like I'm walking a tightrope so high. I won't be turning around, no, I won't be turning around. It's the right time. You feeling alright? I'm playing your game like I will win tonight. Don't forget it, don't forget it, don't forget it. We'll turn this around. Don't forget it, don't forget it, don't forget it. We'll turn this around.
Thanks for tuning in to Geeksvana's Drone News Live. Get involved live with your comments and opinions. Your views count.
Did you miss us? Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to start, so sit back and enjoy. Don't forget to get involved in the chat. Your opinion counts. If it's about drones, obviously.
Hey everybody, welcome to Geeksvana Live. It's great to see you on the chat there. I'm joined this evening by Matt Williams. Do you know, Matt, I still don't know, I still don't check myself to point which way I'm going to point after all these live streams. It's crazy, isn't it?
It is.
How are you, sir?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you very much. Everybody will know Matt Williams as Mr. MPW from the Mr. MPW YouTube channel, which is an absolute font of knowledge. Really, whether you are a hobbyist or a professional drone operator, I must stop calling them pilots in the UK. It does annoy the community, especially the professionals, quite rightly. We need to address them correctly. Am I right that did we switch recently from calling them pilots to operators? Is that the EASA changes or?
Yeah, it's certainly the way I think most things are going. But I think, it's still remote pilot is what, the definition is. So I think it's one of those that I think there's so many pilots in the community that they're the ones going, well, we're actually pilots. We've not done a half-day course or whatever it is. So yeah, that's
indeed.
I think
Indeed. I did put a video out a while ago, which was pilots react to drone comments, etc. And that was quite interesting. There were actually a really good bunch of people, actually, the general aviation pilots who did respond and took part in that video. A lot of them were unsurprisingly drone flyers themselves. So which is yeah, but that's one of the reasons why I normally call people drone flyers in my videos rather than pilots or operators. But I fell into my own trap there. Just very quickly say hello to a few of the people joining us in the chat. Hi, Chris Hope, great to see you. David from Desmond Donders, hi. Paul M, hello, newbie here. Thank you for joining us, Paul. Have you come across from Mr. MPW? Are you one of his viewers? Agent K, hi, good to see you, sir. Phantom Flight 101, Herman, hello. John Coopy, El Smeghead, one of our moderators, hello, sir, good to see you. What a fantastic name! It's one of those names, isn't it? Everybody has a little smile about when they see it in the chat. It's quite funny.
That's it. There's no escaping him. Yeah.
And a few of the early arrivers, Darren Eleanor, really good to see you. Michael Blade, great to see you. Chris Hope, you said nice bridge shot there, Sean. I cannot take any credit for any of the drone flights in my introduction. They are actually 100% stock footage. So I would just like to state that for the record. Hi 3X drones, really great to see you. So tonight we're going to be talking, obviously, as I said, to Matt Williams from MR MPW and of UAV Hub. The idea behind it is to perhaps scratch behind the surface a little bit. We've all seen. I'm a huge fan of Matt's channel. We've all seen lots of his videos. We know exactly who he is as a professional and as a content creator as well. And one of the things I want to do tonight is perhaps have a little look behind the scenes and behind the man and attempt to get to that. But first of all, for those of my viewers who, for some strange reason, aren't one of your 4,000 subscribers, congratulations on hitting that milestone, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Could you tell us a little bit about what MR MPW as a channel does?
Yeah, so it's quite funny. I was having a conversation with somebody today on one of the social channels about this exact thing. You know, it was... as you said, we run the drone school, but there's a lot of other things going on. I've always been passionate about aviation, as we'll talk about over the next 45 minutes, an hour or so, but it's about helping people, and that's where really my passion for teaching and aviation fused. But the problem I had is that there was only one of me, and I was trying to help so many people. I mean, to put it into context, 150 to 200 emails a day generally is what I see on the MR MPW side. And it's been like that since before we even started the channel, So what we did was just say, look, I can't help individually anymore. So we're going to take the top questions. And that was how the channel started. We took the top 50 questions. We took those questions, put them as titles for the first 50 videos effectively, yes, and batted those out. And that therefore allows me to help thousands of people a week, well, a day now as it is, bizarrely, and it just seems to be the most efficient way to get out and help people, help a lot of people rather than helping the individuals. So
yeah, and it's something which works. I mean, it's I'm often remarked to that I know a decent amount about drones, and people always compliment me on my videos that they're well researched, etc. But yours is the channel that I still go to learn something, and there are still topics that you cover on your channel, which for a UK drone flyer, it's essential to have, Matt. I don't often go on about a guest channel that much, but it is essential because you will learn things on Matt's channel that you will not learn anywhere else. And one of the reasons, of course, is because of your UAV Hub background and your own professional droning background, that you actually know what you're talking about, rather than necessarily someone saying, okay, I've read the regulations, I think I understand them. Whereas, of course, you and your colleagues are putting courses together, etc., to be able to have people in the skies under these new qualifications. So you, of course, really do understand exactly where the law stands and where the rules, how the rules should be interpreted, which is absolutely fantastic. I am going to be dropping some links in the chat occasionally for both the UAV Hub side of things, which is the training company, but also Matt's channel. So please do bookmark those and go and have a look at those later on when you can. Also, if you have any questions as we're running along in the chat format, I'm just going to drop another link in there now very quickly. There's me dropping lots of links in my own chat, which is, if you have any questions for Matt, please just start your question with @Geeksvana, and then I'll be able to help you there. Right. So, Matt, what is your earliest memory of aviation from the point of view that it really, the love started?
Yeah, it's, to be honest, it's as far back as I can remember, and it's quite funny because my parents always had this joke that the first word I said was Concorde. I don't believe it, but that was always from when I can remember them saying, oh yeah, you were literally lying in your pram at your nan's, Concorde took off, came over, and you said Concorde, and it's like, what? How did and it's just like, okay. So that kind of puts it, I suppose, into some kind of context. I have always, literally my first kind of memory was aeroplanes, helicopters. The family holidays were always to Rossniger in Anglesey, so the end of the runway at RAF Valley.
Very nice.
That was where we went to. My dad was a milkman, you see, so he got like one night off where he did double milk. He got one night off a week in the summer holidays.
Crikey.
So we'd go on a Tuesday up to Rossniger in the little motorhome, stay over, watch the aeroplanes, hot chocolates, watching the aeroplanes, and then drive back the next day. And that was it for until I guess I joined the Air Cadets, and it was always my. Yeah, that was it. Always my ambition, always the thing I was passionate about, kind of technology and flying. And I don't know, shaped me, I guess.
Did you live on one of the Concorde flight paths then? Did you have a lot of? Because my school was on Concorde's takeoff path, and I used to get the rattling at about 10:15 or 11:15. It's so many years ago.
Yeah,
that I can't remember, but it was always a very exciting. Oh, there's Concorde. Everyone was. So did you have a lot of exposure to it?
Not a huge amount, to be honest. I think more from the fact that we used to go kind of chasing it around the country whenever we got the chance to. But we were at the end of one of the departures for Manchester Airport, the Conga 1 Romeo, so just outside Congleton in Staffordshire, and that was the departure when they were a single runway airport, and you knew when Concorde was coming over the top on our way out. So yeah, it was pretty special.
It's a sound that I miss in the skies. I have to say, it's something that I know longevity wise, it was never going to happen, of course, but it would have been nice to see somebody innovate something that perhaps we could have taken things to the next level. We occasionally get the odd a news article saying, hey, there might be a new Concorde coming, but I think we know with the way air travel is going, especially with the changes that have just happened, it's all going to be on getting people there as cheaply as possible and on mass, obviously, rather than these tiny luxury commercial jets. Obviously there's huge demand for the lovely Learjets, etc., which I have actually sat on one in the ground at Fair Oaks in Surrey. That's about
nice.
It's about as close to one of those
close as you've got.
And then I got back off and he flew off.
One day, mate. One day.
Indeed. Well, yeah. I'm not actually that good with flying, to be fair. So I was okay with getting off. So. We're probably opposites from that point of view. Although I have been told that one of the things I should do to lose my issues is go and take a flying lesson.
Yes.
Because apparently that does sort out a lot of people who have phobias. So I have to say I am tempted. Now, you mentioned the cadets.
Yes.
And of course, as anybody who doesn't know, your path then took you on to the Air Force. Was the Air Force something which was in your plans again from an early age, or was it the cadets that sort of moved you towards that?
No, to be honest, the cadets was one of the things that I put in place, really, I suppose, from a very young age, because I was so driven to join the Air Force as a pilot. And, it was literally a case of looking at, my family. We couldn't afford for me to fly. It was an impossible thing for me to attain. And, through no fault of anybody's, really, it was just, that's how things work, right? And the only way for me to achieve the dream, I thought, as a kid from, Stoke-on-Trent, was to do everything I could to get there. And the cadets, for me, was a big step on that. It allowed me to be in and around the culture to a degree. Certainly back in the day, I know it's a bit more of a youth organisation now,
yes,
than it was, whereas it was very much a kind of feed-in, I think, to the military in a lot of respects. But I think it groomed me quite well, because that was the path I wanted to go down. It took me on that route, and I won a gliding scholarship.
Oh wow!
So I managed to get solo in a motor glider at 16, and then became a staff cadet at that school, and flew there every weekend.
That is amazing. I mean, as you say, I think a lot of the cadet services these days in most branches, certainly here in the UK, as you say, they're much more of a social thing than necessarily. I'm not sure why it was ever seen to be a bad thing that those organisations became, were a route to the forces. I think even as young children ourselves, whoever did or didn't go into the cadets, I think we all understood what it was about and what it was there for. So I think that's a shame because we're perhaps not engaging the next generations quite as much as we could have been, and bringing out people like yourself who are destined to be flying in the sky for us, and thank you for your service, by the way. Who are absolutely destined to be up in that sky. Hopefully they're finding other ways to engage those people, and hopefully they're getting them in other ways.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I suppose one of the big things and one of the drivers behind the change, because I was in the military when the organisation went through that significant kind of change process. If I'm honest, I think a lot of it was due to the fact that we actually didn't need to recruit because we were oversubscribed, and I think that isn't the case now.
No.
But the military is looking for a certain type of person, and I think although the cadets is an incredible way for people who are driven and want to go down that route, it certainly is going to look good on your CV as a way to help you, and that's what I used it for ultimately. But I think the organisation's changed because actually the driver for getting the 8 to 12% of cadets to join up isn't a requirement. So,
which I suppose we should also be slightly thankful for in some ways as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not needed, although, but yeah, that'll get way too political, won't it? That's the wrong road.
That's it. Stay away from that one.
Evening, yeah. David from Desmond Donders, he's saying that the cadets was his route into the RAF, but he always wanted to fly and join. He did his gliding course at RAF Sealand. David is another one of those that whatever subject we're talking about, whatever sort of video I'm bringing out, he has great knowledge to offer. And I just find people, especially with the Air Force, their technical knowledge, of course it has to be because they're operating actual aircraft rather than just soldiers, etc. His technical knowledge is always absolutely fantastic, so it's great to see you this evening. And hi to Mad Text Reviews, good to see you, sir. So on from the cadets, you then joined the Air Force. How old were you?
Yeah, so there was actually a little bit of I don't know. Do you want me to kind of spin the dits about that kind of thing? People want to know that kind of stuff. So I applied to join the Air Force. So you had to have a degree to join the Air Force as a pilot when I got into the Air Force, and when I was 16, the Air Force changed it, and they were going to allow, for the first time ever since they went to commissioned officers flying aircraft, they changed it so that you didn't have to have a degree anymore. You could get in based on A levels, which was awesome because that kind of opened it up for me. Because again, there was no way I could afford to go to university, and obviously the uni fees had just come in at that time as well. So I applied for a sixth form scholarship and went to Cranwell. So this was with the Air Force. Went to Cranwell, passed the officer aircrew selection, did really well. Got a letter about 3 months after to say, we were really impressed, but you spoke too colloquially and with an accent which was inappropriate for the officer cadre. So we suggest you go away and get elocution lessons and some life experience. And we're like, what? And to be fair to them, for anyone who's ever seen me when I was interviewed at RAF Shawbury, when I was a student going through there in like, whatever it was, 2003, my Potteries accent was ridiculous. Like, I can't understand what I was saying now. If I look back at old videos of me. So it's quite interesting. I can see where they were coming from, and I then didn't get that. So I actually set up a company building and selling computers and computer software at 16 with a view to paying for my private pilot's license because I got rejected. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll try again in a couple of years, but I'm going to do whatever I can to still get in. So set up this company, made some money, some reasonable money. And the day I finished my last A-level, I actually flew out to Florida and stayed out there for 6 months and did effectively my commercial pilot's licenses that I managed to fund myself. And during that time, I was, the RAF kind of application process was going through, and I was fortunate enough that second time round to get through with flying colours and be offered, basically an unconditional, we want you, when can you start? So I joined at 19. So I had basically a year of
Crikey.
kind of
Yeah.
private pilot flying and living in Florida and stuff like that, which was awesome at 18, having never been away from Stoke-on-Trent before, by the way, ever.
What a culture shock that must have been.
Big time, yeah. Like turn up at an airport in a t-shirt that my mum had bought me that said "player" across the front, and I had no idea what that meant.
Player.
But the Americans did. Yeah, I was like, oh no. And looking back, you just think, what were you doing? Mum bought me
the things we
t-shirt.
did.
I know. So and that was it, mate. I joined up the following year at 19, and went through the training system, which took quite a long time, as you can imagine, because getting to the front line, it takes a lot of doing. And that was where we ended up.
So this first picture here, is this you training or trained?
No, that's me trained. So I was a combat ready captain at this point, out in Iraq in this picture.
Okay.
So the crew that are the people study the side of me are the crew. I didn't include them in for kind of security reasons because a lot of them are still
of course. Yes, thank you.
And that was my life for a very long time.
I mean, you are a very serious looking individual there, okay, and full respect for wearing the uniform and everything else like that. But you do look very young in comparison to now. It's incredible, isn't it, when you look back at these photos and you just think, you remember you are a fully grown captain there. You are a serious individual, but it's incredible. It doesn't take many years for these photos to start looking almost baby faced a little bit, which is incredible. So
it's funny, if I shave my beard off though, this is why I have to have the beard now, because I look about 12 without a beard. So no one takes you seriously unless Yeah. But and again, I loved the aviation side so much that I worked so hard to put myself in the positions I wanted to be in. And, at 24, I was the youngest ever, 5-ship formation SF captain on the force and leading people out in Baghdad doing this kind of thing. So it was, interesting, different world.
Exactly. I was about to say, completely different concept to anything that most of us can really grasp. So here we have you in front of. Is this a Puma?
It is, yeah. So Queen of the Skies. This is out in Kenya.
Okay.
So on deployment in Kenya, working with the troops who were about to deploy to Afghanistan, because it's a very similar environment. In terms of the altitude and the temperature and things like that. Okay. And doing some other bits on the side as well. For those who know the geography, it's quite close to some quite sensitive locations. So the exercises that we were doing out there were a very good staging post for those of us on the force who did extra things to go off and do those extra things.
Excellent. Okay. Yes. Indeed. As you say, geographically speaking, it's extremely well suited. Which other aircraft types did you fly in your time in the RAF?
So operationally, the Puma 1 primarily, and I spent 2.5 tours on the Puma 1, and again I got kind of groomed off fairly early because of where I positioned myself. I became the youngest helicopter instructor the Air Force has had. I became a qualified instructor at 25 on the Squirrel, and then taught on the Griffin, so effectively the Huey with 2 engines. I spent a year teaching on that at Shawbury, and then I got called back to go to the Puma 2 program. So all the Puma 1s got fully upgraded with a full computerized glass cockpit. There you go. Yeah, that's the civilian version that we went off and flew in industry. The military one's slightly different than that because we've got all the defensive aid suites and things inside the aircraft to keep us safe when we're doing horrible things with horrible people. But so it was Puma 1, then Puma 2 primarily, with a bit of kind of Griffin and Squirrel in the middle, and there's the old Puma 1, so that was what it looked like before.
Wow,
that was my. Yeah, that's it. So that was my office as an instructor in the left-hand seat. for quite a few years. No autopilot, no computer at all. The closest we got was that electronic HSI in the bottom,
yes.
In the centre. So that was as close as it got to a computer in the old Puma. And then it moved to what you can see on the other side. And
so these
it
were
was a big
effectively the
change.
same aircraft, but just refitted.
Do you know what the only thing they did wrong with the Puma program, from kind of my point of view of one of the lead instructors and bringing the Puma 2 into service, was that they called it the Puma 2. It was an entirely different aeroplane. Looks the same from the outside because they use the same structure, but the way that aeroplane flew, when it had all its digital flight control system, it had brand new digitally controlled engines, a full quadruplex dual channel autopilot. It was incredible.
Even for a civvy, the difference just looks literally not even next generation. They look like a couple of generations apart, don't they? Really, with with the tech in there, it must have been a dream to come back to. Absolutely incredible.
It was, and that was one of the biggest problems we had, actually, was that, you know, we'd got some very, very experienced Puma pilots on the Puma Force, you know, thousands and thousands of hours, way more hours than I'd got because they've been around flying it for 30 years. The biggest problem we had with those people was that they knew the Puma 1 so well that it was like, you know, they were strapping an old friend on every time they went flying.
Yes.
And they presumed that because the seat was the same and the controls were very similar, that it was going to fly the same, and they just couldn't fly at first, the Puma 2. It's a totally, totally different nomenclature, you know, way of thinking. And all of a sudden you went from fighting the aircraft and fighting the enemy or the job that you were doing to actually the aircraft looks after itself. If you want to climb in the Puma 2 full of troops down the back, you pull the lever in and she goes up like a homesick angel, you know, and you didn't. Yeah, that's it. You didn't have to think about the aeroplane all of a sudden. It looked after itself. So that meant that what we saw was that the new generation of kids coming through, who the PlayStation generation, they were just like, right, show me how this thing works. Oh, okay, it's like a it's exactly the same as a simulator. Bang, they were all over it within minutes, you know. So yeah, very, very interesting journey, actually, crossing over from one to the other.
And you were saying you did 2.5 tours. The third tour, did that end early due to the accident?
It did, yeah. So it's and I think there was a little bit of confusion because I did a video the other day about the Blue Angels and the Bird Strike and things like that in Iraq. That was actually a totally separate incident to the one that ended my military flying career. So yeah, I had a few scrapes along the way because what we do is intrinsically dangerous.
Yes, of course.
But that you know, yeah, I was injured. The aircraft was ruined. We got a new airplane and we went flying literally the next night on some incredible drugs. I went as a co-pilot, and it was like, what am I doing? But yeah, the Americans have got some crazy stuff for that kind of thing. But yeah, so we literally flew the next day and you know, carried on the task. It just meant I knew I wasn't going to be the one who could run away quickest if anything happened, you know, and we ended up on the ground. Indeed.
So the photos that you kindly sent through of the crash, that's the first crash then is this the crash you talked about in your video that didn't end the career? Or
yeah, that's it. So yeah, so that was the Bird Strike. There we go. So you know, this was for those who aren't aware, and this is why, and I think a lot of people look at my channel, right, and they go, who is this drone nut who just bangs on about flying safe and knowing the rules and regulations, and a lot of people, and I think this is, you know, we were talking about it last week, I think this is why I get a lot of stick from people, because they go, well, you say you're not the man from the CAA, but you're always banging on about the rules and regs. I'm like, yes, but that's because I know the consequences if we get this wrong, not just for people who are flying, but for you as drone operators, because it's us who will have the carpet ripped from under us and not allowed to fly if this kind of thing happens. So,
exactly.
You know, this
and also you've seen firsthand the damage that not a lot of animal can do. I know it's all about angles and speeds and everything else like that, but you know that isn't an awful lot of I know there's not much of it left, but and any bird, there isn't an awful lot of bird to hit anything.
No.
So was this the flight over Baghdad?
Yeah, that's it. So we were for these jobs when I was out on this tour here. We were based about 30 miles north of Baghdad. Lots of jobs in the city. Every night, we went in and we would fly at 150 feet over the desert at night as a 5 ship in this case. So 5 aircraft in formation. We were the lead aircraft, and again, I tell the full story on the public speaking circuit, and you'll have seen it in the calls and things like that. So,
indeed.
As I say, if you want to see that, then come and see me talk at some point because I'll go into detail in it. But effectively, we hit this bird in the middle of the night. It came through the chin window, knocked my feet off the pedals, knocked my hand off the control column, hit me in the chest so hard that it broke my body armor, broke and damaged ribs, knocked me unconscious. And you can see here that it bent the cockpit structure so much that the door was blown clean off the aeroplane, and the tail rotor on the Puma is on this side. It's on the right hand side, so and you can't quite see it because the picture's too dark. But
something sticking out there. Oh no, sorry, yeah, that's something completely different. Sorry, carry on.
Yes, that's our flare box, and so just behind that is the tail rotor, and the tail rotor on the Puma is massive, and there have been lots of cases of everyone on board Pumas being killed when you can see there, right? It's a huge tail rotor.
That is huge.
And it's a big target to hit. And, when doors have come off, when the Wendy house, we call it, the piece where the exhaust's coming out of on the engine, the bit behind that. Yeah, the Wendy house, because you can literally hunker down inside it. It's massive.
Awesome.
Those have come off in flight before, hit tails and killed everyone on board. And, so it's not a joking matter really, and that bird weighs about the same as a DJI Phantom or a unique Typhoon, the Typhoon H, and and that was us doing 145 knots, which is fairly quick, 200-ish miles an hour. It's like taking a house brick through the window of your car when you're doing 100 miles an hour. No one wants to do that, right?
No,
so
exactly.
So yeah, and the Blue Angels thing was just mental because you think they're doing at least 2 to 4 times the speeds that we fly, and that's 4 to 16 times the impact energy, and there's going to be a lot of raspberry jam, and
exactly, and it's a huge frustration for all of us law-abiding drone flyers out there, because again, it's the fact that the pilots involved won't have even seen the drone. They're not looking for the drone. They're watching the plane next to them. They're literally following the lead, where the whole thing "follow my lead" comes from type thing. And because there was a fantastic video released of the Blue Angels, because obviously they're doing the city to city thing, aren't they, to raise morale for COVID, of where the outside plane actually had to take evasive action because his lead plane twitched ever so slightly. I don't know if you've seen that video. Very slight. And his reactions were just absolutely spot on, and he just barreled straight out. And if that had happened during some of those angles, I know some of the video is on a rooftop, which is potentially handheld, and but it's just such irresponsible flying, especially towards the end of the video, that it's just absolutely horrendous. And as you say, you can see at those speeds that it's going to cause some damage. It's something which isn't going to end well, frankly.
No, that's it. So that's why it's such an important message that I bang on about so often, because we're flying a drone, but other people, it's their real pink bodies up in the sky, and I've got a wife and kids and a dog, or, friends and family have as well, and it's not just you with the drone going, oh my god, what have I just done? It's the ramifications of that, which are pretty savage.
Exactly. No,
potentially.
Indeed. Okay, so I'm going to move you on from the military side of things now, only because I'm aware that we've already been going 40 minutes, and I don't want to keep you all night.
Yeah.
I'd like you to have some time to spend with Mrs. MPW, as I've decided to call her. Having put all the kids down and everything earlier on. So after the RAF, you of course you're in a situation where the conventional general aviation isn't necessarily the first career option for you, which of course is probably the first time in your life that you've even thought about anything else apart from getting behind some actual sticks.
Yeah.
How did you find drones?
So, I mean, my Air Force career ended very quickly and unexpectedly. Just a very benign incident, really, in a Puma 2. My seat broke off its welds in turbulence, and it went with such force that I got pressed against the kind of cockpit coaming. Ironically, all that kind of nice glass was a lot harder in the Puma 2 than it was in the Puma 1. And and I broke 2 vertebrae in my neck, and that was it. That was me done. Told I'd never fly again, potentially never kind of exercise and all that sort of stuff. So, was in a very bad place because all I'd ever done was fly, and all of my eggs
as well. Of course,
that's it. All my eggs were literally in one basket. So if you're going to take a life lesson away from this, never put all your eggs in one basket. But yeah, so that was it. And I'd always flown model helicopters, model planes, done control line, things like that. Done it competitively on kind of the UK stage since, again, I was very young, because it was a way for me to get into aviation. Because, again, 12, 13, it was a case of doing the milk round with my dad on a Saturday morning for £5 or whatever it was, getting that, saving that up, buying a £60, kit and some solar film and building it and saving up and getting flying. And it really, this is how it started off. So that's T-Rex 600, so a fly barless, one of the first kind of fly barless electric model helicopters of that size. We went on to put cameras onto this. While I was in the Air Force, this was going on. So on the side, I was doing kind of some film and TV bits with big model helicopters, bigger than this eventually, with cameras on, and doing quite well, to be honest. There were no rules and regulations. Scarily, there was no insurance at all at the time. Looking back, you just think, what were we doing? Because those things were dangerous, and we did have a lot go wrong with them. But fortunately, we got away with it. And it's one of those things. So that then, when I had my accident, all of a sudden was like, well, kind of almost effectively lying in a hospital bed saying, well, what do we do now? My Mrs. MPW was 6 months pregnant with our first kid. I was about to go down the fast jet route. I'd been finally got my crossover to go to the fast jet world and go off and do the test pilot thing and all that sort of stuff, which would have been, that was the dream, right? Was to be a fast jet test pilot. That was my dream. Unconventional route via the rotary way, but I'd managed to finally convince them to give me my crossover and give me what I wanted. And so it was like, well, what do we do? The world's turned upside down. We got everything planned out. We were going to move to Linton Ouse for me to do Tucano, and then Valley to go and do the Hawk, and then off out to North Dakota to do the F-35 and things like that. And it's like, that was all planned in our head on a kind of 5 to 10 year plan. And all of a sudden it's gone, and Nat's 6 months pregnant. So we sat down with. Yeah, big time. And I'd lost what I was doing as well, I'd lost my dream. And it's
not as if you're working towards a dream. Your dream is in front of you. The F-35 is there. It's a reality, as you say, in your future. It's an awful lot to cope with, especially with a heavily pregnant wife, as you say. It's
That's it. And it was bizarre times, and we were like, well, what do we do? And I said, well, I'm passionate about aviation still. The drone thing is coming. Drones hadn't really been released yet, but there were the flame wheel kind of RTF, the flame wheel kits that you could buy.
Yes, indeed.
More people had seen what we were doing with helicopters, and people were doing that around the world. Your Trent Palmers and people like that were doing it with copter kids. It was becoming a bit more mainstream. And I said, you know what? There's going to be some regulation here. So we started towards the CAA kind of route of training people, having already been doing unregulated, the flying commercially anyway. And for a lot, the issue was it took us about 2 years to convince the CAA that they should allow effectively an individual with a lot of experience to be a drone training school. They were happy that they were happy that they'd got 2 drone training schools, and then it became 3 that were fairly big entities. They got it kind of sewn up, you know, and that was it really. That was how it went. So eventually the CAA reneged, especially after they saw us operating under special permissions and things like that in the commercial world as aerial motion pictures, and doing a lot of high end stuff. And and we went down that route. So that, hopefully, sorry mate, a long-winded way of getting around to it, but that's the backstory.
No, it's fascinating. It's a part of it that I didn't know about. I had no idea that you were about to, you know, to having to leave the service that you love midway through a career, earlier on in the career than you should be, is hard enough. But doing it, I had no idea you were literally on the brink of the F-35. So again, all due respect for picking things up, frankly, and you know, moving forward in the way that you did, and becoming the entity that you did. So that's actually, so it's the second time that you've been one of the first, because of course you were the first RAE, is it now called, or is that the old? Am I using the old name?
No, that's it. So we were one of the NQEs, and then the kind of, I guess, the position we've put ourselves in with the CAA in the community, we became the very first RAE, the first recognised assessment entity, which is the new drone training school. So we are, I guess, right up there now in terms of, you know, we've proven to the regulator that they should have listened to us in the early days, and we are where we are now.
I will come back to regulations in just a couple of minutes, but I'm gonna throw some photos at you,
Okay.
and I'm going to throw some accusations at you. Well, one accusation. Did you ever try out to be James Bond? Is that what we're seeing here?
No, unfortunately not.
Okay.
But no, you're right. We are at the Bond stage. This case at Pinewood Studios, after a meeting. And you can see this is when I wasn't allowed to do much exercise, right? So there's a lot more Mr. MPW there than there is now, that's for sure.
I can completely understand that. There's a lot more of me at all times. So I would never point that accusation, sir.
No, there's a lot of strain on that button. But, yeah, yes. So you know, we've done this kind of work all over the world for kind of high-end film and TV. You know, with the drones that we had, drones like the Aerogun, where there were only a handful of them in Europe. You know, we were one of the first to kind of adopt that, and it's, you know, it's interesting work, right? And the thing is with these kind of productions, though, everyone thinks they're really glamorous. For me, if I'm honest, being in that film and TV world ruined the film and TV world for me, because you lose the magic. And
yes,
you know, it's quite interesting to see it. But
yeah, I can understand that. And am I right that some of these larger, now obviously more obsolete, extremely expensive pieces of kit are actually coffee tables at your head office?
Yeah, so the Aerogun is a coffee table, effectively. It's the coolest coffee table in the drone world.
Fantastic. So now the more recent focus has been obviously on the switch over from Fly Icarus rebranding to UAV Hub, which I love, by the way. I think it's a fantastic brand, and that is now ready for the new EASA regulations. If you had to pin the tail on the donkey, do you think November will be stuck to? Do you think we will see the adoption at that point? I won't hold you to it, and you're...
Yeah, I know, and you know what I'm like. I'm straight up with whatever I know generally, and I spoke to the CAA yesterday. This was one of the questions that I tentatively raised. I didn't discuss it with them because I don't think it's fair, to be quite honest, to put them in that position at the moment. No one knows is the long and the short of it. Who knows what's going to happen in 10 days when we get to that point where it's been 2 weeks since we went to the unlock in England. I mean, I genuinely don't know. Personally, I think that the CAA now, the UAV department anyway, are they're as close as you're ever going to get a regulator to being friendly forces with the community.
Excellent.
They're certainly very different to how they were 2 years ago.
Yes.
And I think that shows in how pragmatic they've been. And actually, and we gave them a lot of grief for this from the kind of January to March period before the pandemic hit. We've actually had a lot of conversations with them about how they need to improve their strategic communication to the community and to the NQEs and RAs. And I think we've started to see that happen. And they are pushing out things very quickly now. You know, they're making decisions at the kind of UAS sector level where it's like, no, do you know what? You haven't got to stay current. Just send us a PDF that says you don't have to. You know, we're going to give an extension for 3 months. Bang, and it's in black and white, and we've all got it. And I get that it's open to interpretation, but yes. I think the November thing I think it's achievable. I think from the things they're saying, we're going to switch across on the 1st of November to the new framework, and it's been tweaked slightly over the last few weeks with the new 1789 that's come out.
Yes.
That was one of the things I spoke to them for a bit of clarification on one big point. And they are still shooting for it. So, yeah,
fingers crossed, isn't it? Yeah, indeed.
That's it, mate. Pending something
fingers
big
crossed
changing.
for the people that want it to come in, of course, because obviously having just taken my A2 CFC, I really want it to pass as quick as possible. When I heard in one of your recent videos you saying we did have a word with the CAA about potentially the people who've already taken the course being able to adopt it, I was like, just for a second there, you have my fullest attention ever. But there we go. So yeah. We've got a very quick question from Paul M in the chat.
Yeah, I've just seen that come up.
So we saw one of Matt's videos the other day about permissions for flying in a no-fly zone. He flies a Mavic Mini and wants to fly his town centre as it's had a refurb. If I get permission from the local council, do I still need permission from NATS?
So you won't need permission from NATS unless you are in a restricted zone. So if you're in a restricted area or a danger area, you would need permission from NATS/the CAA. You'd need to get a non-standard flight approval. And I actually did a video about that a couple of days ago.
Yes, you did.
Because that process has changed slightly in the last couple of weeks. For the better, I would say. It's gone back to the original thing, which made more sense. So you don't need that. If you've got local council permission, the things that are going to trip you up are separation distances, because you've still got to maintain your 50 metre separation from any person, vessel, vehicle or structure not under your control, even with a Mavic Mini.
Yes.
It doesn't matter that it's under 250 grams and you don't need to register to fly it. You're still bound by the air navigation order at the moment. So yeah, and you need a PFCO to then make any money from that footage. So they're the big stumbling blocks. PFCO if you want to make money, and you want to operate inside a built-up area, which
yes,
you do.
Indeed, exactly, yes. Now, if the EASA regulations, if we were July 2nd and none of the existing world issues had happened and we had adopted, would someone on the A2 CFC be able to make some of those flights if they kept the 50 metre on their legacy aircraft?
Yeah, so yes, you would, and that's the beauty of the A2 CFC is that your legacy aircraft, you'll be able to use the smaller legacy aircraft down to that 50 meters and fly them in built areas, which is brilliant. Stealing the thunder of the video that will be coming out on Thursday, but I don't mind sharing a little Geeksvana exclusive here.
Thank you, sir.
One of the big conversations I had with the CAA yesterday was confirmation that as the regulations stand at the moment, when we move to the EASA framework on the 1st of November, for aircraft under 250 grams, you will not need to do anything to be able to fly that aircraft apart from register if it's got a camera. So you'll just need to do the drone registration scheme. And the only thing you can't do with it is overfly uninvolved people.
Wow.
So the Mavic Mini, so stay tuned to the channel on Thursday, the Mavic Mini all of a sudden becomes an even better legacy aircraft.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it doesn't matter that it's a legacy aeroplane, because it's not under the legacy transitional provisions. That is just written into the new framework. If it's under 250 grams, legacy or not, flying weight as well, not maximum takeoff mass. If it's under 250 grams flying weight, The only thing you can't do is overfly and involve people.
Wow, that's incredible. So you'll still have the column rather than the bubble. So things like Paul's town centre flight will still be impossible because obviously there's going to be a lot of people in a town centre. Hopefully, anyway.
Yes, one day.
Yeah, indeed. But that's fascinating. So as you say, that's really going to open that up. So I've just put the link again in for Matt's channel. So I challenge everybody to beat me to be the first comment on that video on Thursday, because I'm really looking forward to it. And again, that I can't stress that enough to those in the chat, that is the difference between Matt's channel and other droning channels, is the accurate information. And first, the conversations are happening between himself as UAV hub and the CAA, etc. So and as a training entity, he is finding out this information an awful lot quicker than most of us. So Matt is literally where myself, Geeksvana Drone News, we're a drone news channel, but he is where we find our regulation news out from. Okay, well, I mean, unless we have any other last minute questions in the chat, I think I'm going to start to wrap things up there for you. I've kept you an hour. I could literally chat to you for 3 or 4 hours, especially going back to the military stuff and your experiences there. But yes, just very quickly to thank everybody in the chat. Philip Cushat, welcome back. Lawrence Martin, he's late. That's not good enough, Lawrence. He'll start from the beginning to catch up. Thank you very much. It's been a very interesting chat. So unless you have anything else to add, Matt, I think we can leave it there.
Not really, mate. No, more than happy to go on and chat again if people want to see other things or talk about, the full size stuff and, exciting things going on in that world as well at the moment that we'll reveal over the next few months probably. But I've just seen Mads. Mads Tech has popped up. It will require a remote ID that it doesn't have today. I'm going to go through everything on Thursday exactly as it came through from the CAA. So, and the reason that isn't one that, like 99.9% of my videos are fire from the hip. I kind of just sit down and go, what am I going to do on today? Open an email and go, I'll do that. That one is going to be a couple of days because there's a couple of bits I need to get absolutely correct in there because people take it as gospel. So
exactly.
It's exciting news.
I am one of those people that will be sat there with the order button on Amazon and Mavic Mini. So I don't own one yet, but it sounds like I need to get one at some point. So to add to the Air 2. So
yes.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you very much, Matt, for joining us. I really appreciate it. Again, the links are in the chat, but they'll also be in the description afterwards, so please go along and support Matt. If you're in the UK and considering the A2 CFC course, the new GVC courses, if you need help with your current PFCO, if you're a this is how much I watch Matt's channel. I'm almost the advert for him. If you're a current PFCO and you have issues and you don't know where you're going, get in contact. They're not going to start throwing invoices down your throat. They're going to be there to help you and advise you. And you have all sorts of little add-on services, don't you? Like updating things for people and helping PFCOs that have been perhaps let go now by entities who aren't going to convert over, etc. So there's all sorts of little add-on packages that Mac can help you with.
Yep.
So again, thank you everybody for joining us, and I will see you next time on Geeksvana Live.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so that's a wrap. The story has been told. Until next week, of course. Anyway, if you don't mind.
All you want is my hunger. All you need is my pain. Nothing in between ever met you lost. When you were born there was thunder, fire lit in the sky as to lead astray. Now heavy rain pours out of you and me. Come back, rain. Come and ease this obsession. Full force dispossess. Come and quiet this aggression. If we met in a year or two, would you set your eyes on me?